He was one of the most iconic names in custom car history, a man whose vision and craftsmanship shaped an entire generation of hot rodders. Boyd Coddington didn't just build cars, he built dreams out of steel and billet, polished to perfection and showcased under bright lights. His designs were bold, clean, and decades ahead of their time. He helped define what a modern hot rod could look like. And then, suddenly, he was gone. On February 27, 2008, the automotive world came to a screeching halt. The headlines were brief. The news releases were vague. Boyd Coddington, age 63, had died following complications from surgery. No in-depth obituary, no national tribute, no televised farewell. Just a few lines and the echo of disbelief rippling through car forums and garage radio chatter. For fans of American hot rod, the loss felt abrupt, too quiet for a man who had made so much noise in the world of custom builds. For those in his inner circle, it was more than just a tragedy. It was a moment of confusion, suspicion, and mourning made worse by how little was said publicly. Some learned about Boyd's passing from Facebook comments. Others heard it from customers. Many within his own shop didn't hear it from management, but from the internet. There were no follow-up interviews, no legacy documentary. Discovery Channel, the network that had helped launch Boyd into mainstream fame, remained largely silent. The show was already off the air, and with Boyd's death, it simply ended. But behind that silence, behind the vague cause of death, there were questions. Why did a man with such a powerful brand vanish without fanfare? What happened in the days and weeks before he died? Why did those closest to him seem blindsided? He built a legacy in metal, fame, and fire. But the story of Boyd Coddington's final chapter has remained buried in shadows. Until now. This is the truth behind the myth. This is the story you weren't told. The story of what really happened behind the scenes when one of hot rodding's greatest legends fell. Before the cameras, before the controversy, and long before the shop drama played out in living rooms across America, Boyd Coddington was a name whispered with awe in garages and car shows from coast to coast. Born in Idaho and raised in Southern California, the heart of car culture, Boyd came of age during an era when hot rods were just starting to evolve beyond backyard builds and into works of art. He studied machining, worked as a professional toolmaker, and learned early how precision and creativity could coexist. But it wasn't until the late 1970s that he truly made his mark. He opened Hot Rods by Boyd, a shop that would redefine the custom car world forever. His style was revolutionary. Sleek lines, lowered stances, billet aluminum wheels. Boyd's cars didn't look like anyone else's. They looked future-ready, like hot rods that belonged on a concept car runway rather than a dusty drag strip. His signature builds, like the Boydster, weren't just cars. They were statements. He soon launched Boyd Coddington wheels, turning his aesthetic into a commercial powerhouse. His clientele included celebrities, athletes, and elite collectors. He won the prestigious America's Most Beautiful Roadster Award multiple times. More importantly, he inspired the next generation of builders, including a young Chip Foose, who started as a designer under Boyd's roof. By the time American hot rod came knocking, Boyd was already a legend. But reality television would take his name and his shop to a much broader audience. Millions would come to know the man behind the myth, and some would regret that they did. For years, Boyd Coddington stood as the gold standard of custom car building. But with success came pressure, and with fame came an entirely new kind of danger. When American Hot Rod premiered in 2004, It was supposed to be a celebration of Boyd's shop and legacy, a behind-the-scenes look at one of the most elite hot rod garages in the country. But what unfolded on screen was something very different. The show didn't just highlight the builds. It spotlighted the conflict, the chaos, and the cracks in Boyd's empire. The shop, once a sacred space of craftsmanship, became a circus of blown deadlines, screaming matches, and employee walkouts. And at the center of it all was Boyd himself, often shown red-faced, yelling, or cracking under the pressure. But what audiences didn't see were the producers pulling the strings behind the curtain. According to former employees, many of the explosive moments were either exaggerated or orchestrated. Producers pushed for drama. Deadlines were manipulated. Builds were accelerated beyond safe timelines, not for customers, but for ratings. Boyd's gruff demeanor made for compelling television, but it wasn't the full picture. Off-camera, he was known to be focused, meticulous, and even generous, especially when it came to giving young builders a chance. But the Boyd seen on American Hot Rod was edited into a near caricature. The perfectionist tyrant, always one misstep away from detonation. The reality? He was under relentless pressure, managing a business, maintaining a legacy, leading a team, and now performing for millions. Every move scrutinized by an audience that wanted entertainment more than truth. The stress wasn't just emotional, it was physical. And as Boyd pushed himself harder for the show, something inside him was beginning to break. Behind the polished wheels, gleaming chrome, and televised bravado, Boyd Coddington was fighting a battle he didn't like to talk about. One he couldn't outbuild, outwork, or edit away. For years, Boyd struggled with type 2 diabetes, a disease he managed quietly but imperfectly. Close friends and shop insiders say Boyd hated looking weak. He rarely discussed his condition publicly, and even fewer people knew just how much damage the disease was doing to his body behind the scenes. The constant fatigue, the weight fluctuations, the strain on his internal organs. It was all there, but he kept pushing. He underwent several major surgeries during the run of American Hot Rod. Some were related to complications from diabetes. Others, like the gallbladder surgery in early 2008, came at a time when stress was at an all-time high. And despite doctor recommendations, Boyd often returned to work too soon, determined not to slow down. In the months leading up to his death, staff noticed the changes. He was moving slower. He was quieter. His outbursts were fewer. But when they came, they seemed more tired than angry. Some say he looked pale. Others say he was often in pain. And yet, the cameras kept rolling. There's a tragic irony in Boyd's final months. The man who built some of the most precise machines in the world was ignoring the warning signs in his own. He was the face of a brand, a show, a movement. But inside, he was a man running out of time and running on fumes. On February 27, 2008, the car community woke up to a shocking announcement. Boyd Coddington was dead. The statement was short and clinical. Complications from surgery related to ongoing struggles with diabetes. No other details, no elaboration, and no formal goodbye. The man who had defined an era of custom car culture was just gone. Inside the shop, confusion rippled through the crew. Some employees were told directly. Others, remarkably, found out from fans, news outlets, or social media before management addressed it. The shop reportedly shut down operations that day. There was no formal gathering, no tribute building, just shock, silence, a stillness in the air that didn't feel right. Dwayne Mayer, the famously tough shop foreman, was seen standing outside, visibly shaken. Staff members who had been with Boyd for years struggled to even find words. There was no camera crew to capture this moment, no production schedule to direct it. It was real, raw, and devastating. The network behind American Hot Rod, Discovery Channel, remained mostly silent. They issued no public memorial, no tribute episode, no statement beyond the basics. The show, already winding down, was never given a proper finale. It simply vanished, just like its star. Fans, left with no context or closure, speculated. How could someone so strong, so dominant, fall so fast? And why weren't more people talking about it? In an industry that Boyd helped build, his death felt like an uncomfortable truth that no one wanted to face. And that silence said more than any press release ever could. The official line was simple: surgical complications. But for many who knew Boyd, or watched the final seasons of American Hot Rod, that explanation felt incomplete. There were whispers, quiet conversations in car clubs and online forums. Was Boyd pushed too hard, too fast after surgery? Did his relentless work ethic and refusal to rest worsen his condition? Some insiders claimed he returned to the shop just days after gallbladder surgery, still visibly weak against doctor recommendations. Others pointed to deeper issues: mismanagement of his diabetes, emotional and physical exhaustion, or even possible hospital negligence. Some former crew members believed the stress of running both a business and a TV show at his age and condition may have accelerated his decline. But none of it was confirmed. What's more troubling, there was no in-depth investigation, no probing interviews, no documentary retrospectives. The media moved on. Discovery didn't air a tribute. The brand didn't issue a formal farewell. For a man whose name once dominated the SEMA floor and the Motor Trend covers, his passing was handled with an eerie corporate detachment. Then there were the rumored family disputes and business entanglements. It's been said that internal disagreements over rights, assets, and future control of Boyd's empire delayed any kind of public closure. Legal tensions behind the scenes reportedly kept staff and family from speaking freely. And so, the silence persisted, not because people didn't care, but because those who knew the truth were either too hurt or too bound to say it. Boyd's death didn't just shake his team emotionally. It shattered the foundation of the shop itself. Without its visionary, the place that once symbolized American hot rod excellence suddenly felt hollow. The builds slowed. Morale nosedived. And leadership, once enforced by Boyd's relentless standards, was now scattered between those left behind. There was no succession plan, no blueprint for moving forward without him. Dwayne Mayer, who had loyally stood by Boyd through the highs and lows, was left in an impossible position. He had the respect of some, the resentment of others, and none of the direction Boyd had once provided. What followed was a quiet unraveling. Many of the original crew either quit or were let go. The clientele dried up. The reputation Boyd had spent decades building began to fade. The brand, once iconic, drifted into obscurity, used on merchandise and memorabilia, but no longer connected to the thriving, beating heart of a working garage. Even more tragic, American Hot Rod, the show that brought Boyd's genius to a global audience, was never formally concluded. There was no finale, no tribute episode, no final ride, just reruns and a void. A legacy built in chrome and fire was suddenly left in the cold, with no one at the wheel. In the world of hot rodding, few rivalries cut as deep as the one between Boyd Coddington and Chip Foose. Once mentor and protege, their relationship would fracture in full view of the custom car community, transforming from one of collaboration to quiet, bitter competition. Chip Foose began his career working under Boyd in the early days of Hot Rods by Boyd. A design prodigy with an eye for flow and elegance, Foose helped shape many of Boyd's most iconic builds. But tension began to grow. Creative differences, internal politics, and ownership rights to design concepts created a rift. Eventually, Chip left to form his own company, Foose Design, taking several loyal staff members with him. For Boyd, the defection felt like betrayal. For Chip, it was necessary independence. Their feud simmered beneath the surface of car shows and award circuits, with fans often forced to pick sides. It was more than a split. It was a civil war inside the custom car world. And while both continued to thrive professionally, personally, the wound never closed. When Boyd passed away in 2008, there was no reconciliation. No final phone call. No handshake. Just silence. Foose, ever respectful in public, later said he was deeply saddened by the news, even if their issues were never resolved. The tragedy? These were two men who revolutionized the same industry, whose legacies were forever intertwined. But their story ended unfinished. In the end, their rivalry was left hanging, not with resolution, but with regret. A lesson about pride, time, and the fragile nature of creative partnerships. To most fans, Boyd Coddington was a legend, a titan. The name behind the most beautiful billet wheels and groundbreaking street rods. But to those who knew him best, he was something more complex. A flawed perfectionist, driven by an obsession with excellence and burdened by it. He was known for his temper, that's true, but also for his consistency, for never accepting good enough. He pushed his builders, his family, and most of all, himself. The Boyd you saw on TV was intense, but the one behind the scenes was a craftsman, a businessman, and, at times, a man quietly battling his own body. He had a vision for what a hot rod could be. He took something raw and mechanical and gave it soul. His cars weren't just fast. They were beautiful, balanced, iconic. But as his fame grew, so did the expectations. Running a shop, managing a brand, leading a television crew, and fighting a chronic illness, all at once, took a toll. He didn't talk about being tired. He didn't show weakness. He just kept working. That was Boyd's way. Ask anyone close to him, and they'll say the same. He changed the industry forever. He made hot rodding elegant, mainstream, desirable. But the cost of that influence was immense. The very perfectionism that built his legacy may have also pushed him past his breaking point. Boyd wasn't just a builder. He was a symbol. And symbols, when left to carry the weight alone, often collapse under it. When Boyd Coddington died, the world didn't just lose a car builder. It lost a movement, a style, a standard. He didn't simply reshape hot rods. He reshaped what it meant to pursue perfection, even at the highest cost. The shop is gone. The TV show is a memory. The crew scattered. And yet, his influence is everywhere. In the lines of a modern street rod, in the wheels chosen by the next builder trying to make their mark, in the thousands of people who saw his designs and thought, I want to do that too. His name still echoes through the industry, even as younger generations may only know him from grainy reruns or tribute builds. But those who watched him work, those who stood in his shop while sparks flew, remember the man, imperfect, relentless, creative beyond belief. We'll never know what more he could have done if he'd had more time, if he'd slowed down, if someone had stepped in and said, Boyd, it's okay to rest. But maybe he didn't want to rest. Maybe his greatest fear wasn't failure. It was stopping. He didn't just build cars. He built a movement. And though his voice is gone, the sound of his vision still roars down every road his influence touched.